is a big idea, a new world order.
Your world is not what it seems. Alex answering. Outside the box.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is May 15th, 2011, and I'm very excited to bring you tonight's live edition of Outside the Box. And we are broadcasting live from Portland, Oregon, USA. Tonight, Jack Pruitt is our guest tonight from the state of Texas. He's written a fantastic new book that just arrived in the mail straight off the printer. The title of Jack's book is The Grandest Deception. Now, in about 10 minutes' time, he's waiting on the line. We're going to get to Jack. What I want to do now in the next 10 minutes is give you some brief updates on some news developments, many of them locally, that are taking place that you may not have heard of. So with time limited, we're going to do our best to sum it up. Of course, watch your show with a pen and paper. You may not have time to get all the facts, of course, so you may want to take a look at some of this information on the World Wide Web. Now, of course, our top story of the evening, one of the things that we're going to start with, you may not have heard about this, toxic cloud released over Portland, Oregon. No evacuation warning, and this was written by Sarah Merck of the Portland Mercury. The name of the company is Precision Cast Parts. They're the aerospace and weapons manufacturer nestled along the river between Milwaukee and southeast Portland. 2 years ago, they got a D- for their environmental rating from one research institute. Currently, they fall near the top in a ranking of the nation's 100 most toxic companies. Those are what's called warning signs, people, writes Sarah Merck. And so this is in the news. This took place, by the way, Wednesday of this week at around 6 p.m. But the reports coming in now says that the toxic cloud has dissipated. But we want to keep you informed of any future developments. Here's another one straight from Seattle, Washington. Floating missile defense radar is now parked in Seattle for maintenance. The floating radar is intended to identify ballistic missile threats and relay information to the battle management, command, control, and communication system for missile defense. Oddly enough, here's an interesting little sentence here. Admission, the system will not be operational while in Seattle. Now, while that's going on, a new shield is going up in Poland, enraging Russia. Rather, U.S. to station F-16 fighter jets in Poland. President Barack Obama is set to formally announce the deployment of U.S. military aircraft to Poland in a move that could damage Washington's relations with Moscow. Now, here's one interesting oddball death machine military-industrial complex story. Pakistan to let China plunder the secret U.S. stealth helicopter downed in the bin Laden raid. It actually came out there's some sort of a stealth helicopter that Osama bin Laden allegedly had at this compound in Pakistan. It's a far-fetched story. It raises many questions. How did Osama bin Laden, bin Bama, wind up with a stealth helicopter that was a top secret security technology, Pentagon technology? What was it doing allegedly in bin Laden's hands? Now the story is coming out that Pakistan is going to give parts of the wreckage of this particular helicopter to China. That's very, very interesting. Moving along, I'm sure some of you will find this to be a little bit amusing. Barack Obama action figure styled as Rambo, Navy SEAL Team 6. Yes, these toys are being made at this particular time on the aftermath of the not so truthful story about this alleged boogeyman that was caught in Pakistan. Now, last week I talked about this alleged murder of Osama bin Laden and how the government is now saying, ooh, watch out, they're going to get you, they're going to get you. Trains across America are under a threat from Al-Qaeda. Very interesting information I have found personally last week. Well over 12 trains have, for whatever reason, accidentally, according to the official story, they've derailed. We have stories coming out of Oregon. We have stories coming out of Arizona. Let's start with this one. This was a train that derailed off Highway 30 near Cornelius Pass. 2 days before a drill took place in the Northwest of trains derailing. Very strange coincidence, very familiar, isn't it? But of course, the story doesn't stop there, it actually begins there. We see something with New Jersey, a PATH train pulling into the train station there, crashed into the bumpers at the end of the tracks and injured 34 out of 40 passengers. But wait, there's more, much more. On to New York City. There have been several trains that have derailed there in New York City. One train in particular connecting Queens and Manhattan. Now, this is another one that also just came out. Train derails at Spokane switching yard. 12 cars of a freight train carrying vehicles derailed Friday morning at the switching yard in Spokane. Also on Friday morning, we have a situation in Illinois where a train a truck burst into flames after a crash involving Chicago-bound Union Pacific and a Northwest Line train. And finally, we have a story coming out of Arizona, also Friday morning, 2 days ago. BNSF freight train derails in northern Arizona. Up to 15 cars overturned, no reported injuries. So I want to make sure you are all aware that after this announcement from the White House that we're under attack and our trains aren't safe, all of a sudden we're seeing a number of trains derail. Moving on, a lot of fascination by the sun and how what goes on up there affects us down here. Here's an update on geomagnetic storm activity. The geomagnetic field is expected to be quiet to unsettled on the 14th of May, which was yesterday. Days 2 and 3, the 15th and 16th of May, are expected to be quiet to unsettled with a chance for isolated active periods. The increase in activity is forecast due to a coronal hole high-speed stream becoming geoeffective. In fact, there's a major development that's breaking in the news right now pertaining to the very unusual anomalies of the sun. This from Fox News. Stunning video, comet collides with the sun. And you can actually watch this video. Go to the next graphic, gentlemen. And you can actually watch this online, an actual comet slamming into the sun that has actually caused some sort of a coronal mass ejection. And there are rumors right now on the internet of another comet hitting the sun. In the last week, we have seen more earthquakes. We saw a large earthquake in Spain, one of the largest quakes in 50 years. We've also seen a 6.1 in Costa Rica, and also another isolated earthquake somewhere in the Pacific. There's stories now, and there are some people speculating on whether these solar flares or the solar activity is potentially connected with this. Multiple transformers are blowing throughout the nation. We have 3 different reports here. Graphic number 16 from Fort Worth. What you're seeing here are flashes created when lightning hits feeder lines that carry electricity to neighborhoods, and the power surge through transformers and other equipment. But wait, there's more. We have a story from Las Vegas. Firefighters battle electrical blaze near Monte Carlo on the Las Vegas Strip. Actually, flames shot 80 to 90 feet in the air. And finally, we have a story coming out of Wisconsin. Transformer explodes in Fort Atkinson, Wisconsin. An electrical transformer blew up early Thursday morning, causing a fire on the roof of NASCO International Incorporated. By the way, on the topic of what's going on up there, potentially affecting us down here, we mentioned last week about a planetary alignment. Here is a after report. A celestial delight, a rare planetary alignment beginning on May 11th. The 4 planets, Mercury, Venus, Jupiter, and Mars, will rearrange themselves to form different patterns in the sky. Now, the actual article that you're looking at now is also very interesting. NASA is saying that this recent burst from this supernova is in fact the largest that they have seen to date. Now, with all this stuff going on, I'll tell you, there sure is a lot of people in the South that probably think the end of the world is here, the end is near. And of course, people like this aren't really helping matters. New York man spends life savings ahead of May 21st doomsday date. A 60-year-old Staten Island resident said he spent about $140,000 on 1,000 subway car play cards and ads on buses and subway cars. They say things such as global earthquake, the greatest ever, Judgment Day, May 21st, 2011. He said this will in fact happen just before 6 p.m. local time. Strange stuff taking place when FEMA is holding a massive drill Same time period in the South involving millions of people, many of them school children. Now, moving on to the South and some of the destruction that we've seen there in the last week. 3 million acres of crops have now been submerged. U.S. grain export season has been delayed, and this is coming from Reuters. And the next report, China, South Korea, and Japan to provide up to 200 tons of rice in terms of their contingency plan. Looking now at Mississippi. Mighty Mississippi begins to wrap around Memphis. On May 10th, the river reached a height of 47 feet. On the topic of Alabama, Alabama tornadoes break weather records. 99 tornadoes touched down on April 27th. 7 were EF4 tornadoes and 2 were EF5. This year now holds the record for the number of tornadoes and most EF4 and EF5 tornadoes in a single year. Now, with these earth changes taking place, suspicions of HAARP being used to direct these storms, people are acting a little bit strange. There's been a number of stories about a rash of suicides taking place across the planet. There's also some very interesting local stories. So I want to go over this strange human sentient being behavior that we've seen over the course of the last week. Aviation experts cannot explain what has prompted 3 airline passengers to try to open cabin or cockpit doors while in flight the past few days, but they say other passengers should not worry. On one Sunday, a man from Yemen tried to storm the cockpit door. On another day, another person tried to open the door that would have caused some serious destruction. Very strange to see 3 people do the exact same thing on the exact same day. I want to take this time to send a blessing to the Leonard family, Randy Leonard. Randy Leonard, the only man that appears to have been one of the few to stand up against the JTTF language. You can read more about this online. It's a strange timing for Randy, who stood up against the FBI, for his daughter to have allegedly committed suicide. For those that don't know, Randy Leonard, the city commissioner, his daughter has committed suicide allegedly, and you can read more about that online. Unfortunately, the local media does not appear to be looking for any details or any evidence of foul play, which I find to be highly disturbing. Moving forward and swiftly, suicide off tallest skyscraper in Dubai in a plunge of 39 floors from a segment of the world's tallest skyscraper. In the next headline, we have a strange story of a beheading by a man that screamed that he was a prophet of God. This is taking place in Spain within 24 hours of the major earthquake that hit the nation of Spain. In Ireland, suicide rates have increased by 24% from 2008 to 2009. Those aren't counting numbers from the last 2 years. Finally, moving to Colorado, suicide rates have jumped dramatically in Colorado, double what they were last year. Australia to act over frightening suicide rate among Aborigines. Most of those who have killed themselves were under 30. And of course, we have a strange story coming out of Bend. Bend officials plan free suicide prevention training after an open mic stabbing. One man performed at an open mic night and then went home and repeatedly stabbed himself in the chest. And so my conclusion with this whole stack of news is that there is something going on Earth right now that is causing fellow humans to self-destruct. And we have to start asking the larger questions. What is really driving this collective self-destructive behavior? What do we need to look at? What do we need to be aware of? In our very last story of the evening, before we get to our guest, I want to talk about a man that was at the very center, along with others, of the biggest bank robbery in the history of this nation. Only the gangsters were doing the robbing. Now, we're talking about Mr. Khan, who is the head of the IMF, and Mr. Khan of the International Monetary Fund is now in custody in New York City. He has been charged with a violent rape in New York City. I will not get into the specifics, but the leader of the IMF Fund intends to plead not guilty to sexual misconduct charges after the violent assault of a hotel maid. He has been arrested at the Port Authority of New York, and he is a front runner also